Hi, Andrew from SACS. Am I in the right job? Well, we often have to ask ourselves that question, don't we? And I'm going to give you 4 ideas today to help you to reflect on that question. First, we'll talk about the intellectual challenge of the job that you have. And we'll talk about cognitive ability because that affects whether we match the cognitive demands of the job that we have. Second, we're going to talk about personality. Does the job match my personality? Third, we'll talk about work values. And a person's values are accumulated over the course of life. And if the job satisfies their values, it's much more likely that they'll be happy with that job and fit in. And the fourth component, I'm going to give you an equation which is often described as meaning and purpose. And I'm going to give you a simple exercise so that you can reflect on the meaning that you're getting from your work life and the purpose that you're getting from your work life. But first, let's start with cognitive ability. Cognitive ability is the degree to which I am smart and the degree to which my job demands me to be smart. You'll see that there are 3 forms of cognitive ability mentioned here: verbal, numerical, abstract. Verbal is about words, numerical is about numbers. Abstract is really about your capacity to anticipate how things might turn out. People with high abstract reasoning are able to kind of anticipate what might happen, to see ahead of the game. Now, the job can be a mismatch in 2 ways. One is that it can be cognitively too easy. So if we're energetic people and we want to do challenging work and the job's too easy, well, we're going to get dissatisfied with that and sooner or later we will leave. The second mismatch is if the job is too intellectually demanding for you. Now, if the job is too hard for you to do, then that can be a challenge in terms of stress, but it also can be boring. If you can't engage with the intellectual material in the job, that of its nature can be boring. But what about personality? Well, personality can be a match and a mismatch as well. This is the hexaco model of personality as expressed through the work-worded version of the hexaco, which is called the SACS 6. And you'll see that there are 6 personality factors here that can affect whether you fit into your job or not. And I'm going to just pick out a couple. One is integrity, modesty, and that's the degree to which you are truthful and honest and straightforward. Now, if you are that way, if you're a very honest person and the job requires you to do something that you consider shonky, shifty, dishonest, well, you're going to feel uncomfortable with that job, and that's going to be a difficult thing for you to cope with. Now, personality has a very strong genetic component. So this is almost how we're hardwired. By the way, so does cognitive ability. This is almost how we're hardwired. So if I'm an honest person and the job doesn't satisfy that, then it's likely to be a mismatch. The next is emotionality. Some people are emotionally stable, some people are emotionally unstable. If you are highly emotionally stable, then it's likely that you can cope with higher levels of stress. If you're emotionally unstable, stressful jobs are likely to make you feel uncomfortable. Also, if you're the person who feels things deeply, then it may well be that finding a job where you get to empathise with people more, where you get to experience those emotional things, provided they're positive emotions, that can be an attractor for people like that. Next, extroversion and introversion. Well, pretty straightforward there. Most people know what we mean by extroversion and introversion. But if you're an extrovert and you have to sit behind a desk day after day doing analytical work, well, that's a mismatch. On the other hand, if you are an introvert and you love analytical work and you need time away from people in order to think and reflect, then if you're constantly immersed in people, that's going to be a challenge. Then, of course, there's conscientiousness. Conscientiousness is the degree to which I'm hardworking, I like to pursue goals, I'm organised. Well, if you're more of a free spirit, but the job requires a very structured approach, well, again, that might be a mismatch. On the other hand, if you're a very structured person and a very committed person to achieving goals, it may well be if you're working with colleagues who are very freewheeling and fancy-free, that may not be a match for you either. And finally, openness to experience. Openness to experience is the degree to which I intrinsically like new things. Again, heavily genetically determined. Now, some people love new things. So, of course, if they're in a job where nothing ever changes, they're likely to be bored. On the other hand, there are people who don't particularly like new things and like things to be more routinized, if you want to put it that way. And so it will be a mismatch if too much change is taking place. So personality, cognitive ability have an effect. Let's talk about values. Now, values are in fact acquired through the course of your work life. And these are 11 work values that have been discovered in workplaces across Australia and New Zealand and beyond. So let's start with the value of ambition, remembering that values are in fact goals. This is something that in the course of my work life, I have learned that it's a good thing to be ambitious. And yes, my personality will affect that to a certain extent. But if a job satisfies my need for ambition, in other words, I can see that there are promotion opportunities in front of me, I'm likely to be more satisfied. You can see that this person is not high on ambition, but on the other side of the diagram, you can see that they are high on social justice. You see, opposite things on this scale are kind of psychologically opposite. So social justice is a belief that things should be equal. So if there's a service that's available, that service should be available to everybody equally. People also who care deeply about social justice really don't like things like racism or discrimination, and they prefer a very inclusive kind of an environment. So if your values match the people around you, then two things are likely to happen. Thing number one is that you will like those colleagues. We tend to like people who have similar values. We also like people who have similar personalities. Human beings are attracted to people who are similar to them. So firstly, we're likely to like our colleagues. But secondly, they're likely to like us if we have shared values. Now let's talk about this idea of meaning and purpose. This is a simple way of looking at whether a job is satisfactory for you. Meaning is doing work that you have an intrinsic love for. If you love, going back to the previous example, if you love social justice, that's something that can give your work meaning. Purpose, on the other hand, is the end product that results from this. So if you have meaningful work, you're doing stuff that you love, but it doesn't actually change the real world in a positive way, then it's unlikely to be truly satisfying. People have true satisfaction where they're able to do meaningful work, but it does have an effect on the real world. So social justice, I'm working on this kind of stuff, but I see that what I'm doing somehow improves things. On the other hand, ambition, if I'm getting ahead in my career, then that's the purpose that I'm aiming towards. So meaning and purpose can be a really useful thing to analyze your current job, but also future jobs. So here's how you might reflect on the meaning and purpose in your current job. What you might do is that you might write down all the things that give your work meaning, and you might write down all of the purposes, all of the ways in which that meaning gets to be translated into actions in the real world. And what you also might do is once you've written these things down, you might rate them in terms of importance. Sometimes it can be 3, 2, 1. 3 is most important, 2 is second most important, 1 is third most important, or you can use it out of 10, whatever number system appeals to you. But it gives you an opportunity to kind of give a score for meaning and a score for purpose in your current job. Now, if you're considering a future job, one of the things that you might do as you're investigating that job, firstly, the meaning and purpose stuff that you've written down, you might see gaps. So it gives you an opportunity to ask questions about elements of meaning that you're not getting in your current job or elements of purpose that you're not getting in your current job. And once you've investigated the job, you can build a T-chart for that new job. Write down the meaning components, write down the purpose components, and allocate numbers. And then that gives you a kind of a numerical way of comparing your current job with the potential new job. So this is a simple way of reflecting on whether you're in the right job or not. If you're interested in finding out more about the measurement instruments that I've described in this process, don't hesitate to click on the link there, this video, or be in touch with SACS, and we'll do what we can to help.